Hello, hi. So glad you're here. I'm so glad to be able to speak to what I'm so excited about. At this time, at the change from our more fertile years, the years when we're baby making or making our life or sort of building life, it's easy to discover that instead of feeling confident and together and having it all together, we tend to look at ourselves and think that there's something wrong, that we're not doing it enough, we're not doing it right enough, we're not getting where we want to get enough. That overlay lands in us on almost every level, especially with women. And I'm looking at this right now from the vantage point of well past menopause into the next actually fabulous part of my life, but looking at the impact of estrogen on our bodies. Look at what happens when we start out. I have a daughter who's in her mid 30s now, but when she was young, when she was like 2 till about 10 or 11, she was like all no holds barred. She was powerful. She was dynamic. She was confident. She was just there in the world, being outrageous. A lot of the time, I didn't know what to do with her, but she was frankly amazing. And because she hadn't been repressed as much as I had been, hopefully I hadn't done that, she had more freedom to be herself. But once estrogen came, once she had a period, once it started to shift, I watched her go into a much more self-critical period where she didn't feel that confidence. Girls were catty. It was hard. It was very difficult for her for a good 10, 15 years. Um, I just watched that so clearly. It was amazing to see what estrogen does for us, how it brings us to the ways we live in the world, and also the ways we interact with people. And often that way includes the way we interact with men or with partners, especially in romantic relationships, where we're so often about just accommodating, making it work, making harmony happen, coming from our beautiful hearts. We have so much access to our hearts as women. But this self-questioning, the part of us that sees ourselves as not fully enough, I think comes along with that estrogen. It's almost like tied together. Our big-heartedness and our really just serving the world, taking care of people. And that is how we develop our ego, how we develop our identity, how we develop who we are, whether it's with career or family or friends. We become often caretakers, often accommodators, often the ones who can give in and be flexible so that everything can work. Now, that identity, on the one hand, I mean, the most loving people I've known in my life have been women, able to just be gracious and generous. And that is a part of us. But what I watch is that women, when we hit that perimenopausal stage, 40 or 45 to 55, about, could be as much as 10 years, where the hormones are fluctuating and we're trying to figure out who we are. We watch the shift from that accommodating place, that always making it right for everybody else. Often, if you're cis in your sexual experience, accommodating to the way men want to do sex, what happens is that in perimenopause, it's like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to accommodate to you anymore when you're not really listening. Or it might be, what is wrong with me? I'm not myself anymore. I used to get turned on and now I don't. I don't know what's happening to me. Or there's this sort of I give up. I don't want to, I'm done. I'm done with all this. So I watch variations of this happen with women in that period of time consistently. It's also just managing our aging, managing what it is to come into a time in our lives where we're not expanding and growing physically. We are on so many other levels, but the body is beginning to be less vibrant, less capable, unless we're really working hard to work on our muscles and our bones, there begins to be deterioration. It's just aging. We are humans. And then there's often the challenge of situational challenges like divorce or losing a job or some really deeply personal challenge that happens at this time that makes us question. Now, I believe that is the golden opportunity, because before that time, we've been relying on what we think of as who we are, this identity we've created, the way we've brought ourselves to the world, whether it's big-heartedness, whether it's great success, anything else. It's really how we've identified as who we are. But at this time, we're asked to look at something deeper. And it does, like the rug is pulled out from under us. And there we are looking at what's really true. Now, truth is sometimes a hard pill to swallow. Often it's the self-truth. It's where we're looking deeply at who we are without the identity, without what we've striven to be, without the way people see us and look at us. In perimenopause and menopause, often that gaze, that approval, doesn't come as quickly or as often. All of that that's been holding up the ego until then is really at sea. It can be at sea if we haven't found a deeper place of intimacy with ourselves. So this is really what my work is, what I've been focusing on for so long. And it's really what I'm bringing in everything I do these days, in my private work, in my programs, in my membership. I'm really looking at how is it that we transition, because this is we're a part of nature. Our bodies, our beings are a part of the evolution and the cycles of nature. I can't believe that this is a failure of nature or of life. This time of change, I believe, is really asking us to move to the next level. And that next level cannot come unless we're willing to really take stock. And that's what I think happens in perimenopause, when everything gets toppled over, where we're really examining what's happening. I want to share with you how I came to be doing this work, because I think it will step us into the next piece of work I'd like to do today in this class. So in my mid-40s, I was 45, I went on a vision quest. My youngest was in first grade. I had never really, since I became a mother in the early 30s, I really hadn't been on my own at all for any length of time. This was an opportunity to look at why I was depressed. I had just quit a job that I was really struggling in, that I couldn't find my way. I had Lyme disease, was just recovering from that. And I was watching my inner life, my intimate life, want more. And I didn't know what that more was. I started being attracted to other people. I didn't know what to make of that. I didn't want to be a bad person. I didn't want to do something wrong to hurt other people, but I was really struggling. So my husband, bless him, handled the family and the kids. I have 3 kids. He managed all of that. And I went away for 2 weeks. Went to Utah, to Animas Valley, which is a program, a Vision Quest program, really following the native practices. During those 10 days in that practice, I had an experience in a sweat lodge of, I think, my Kundalini awakening. I had been pretty dead sexually for quite a while. Pregnancy and nursing and 3 kids and a very dynamic husband and his work and his practices and our moves. I was just kind of unplugged there. But by 45, it just, something wasn't right. So this Kundalini awakening, I just felt energy in my body like I had never felt energy. I didn't know what to do with it. The guides for that Vision Quest sent me into my 4-day solo, 3-day fasting, to ask the question and to make love to nature, to the sun, the wind, the pinyon trees, the red rocks, the sky, the mud. They just had a flood, so there was mud and flowers. And I spent those days finding my own sense of self, finding what it was, what I needed to make love in life. That was the beginning of what changed my course, because at the end of that vision quest, we were in Akiva. We'd come back to base camp, and they asked us, what is the message you're bringing back to your people? And it's native practice in the north. After you've gone through east and south and west, coming back to the north, you ask, what is it you're bringing back to your people? And mine was to help women say yes and no, because I really couldn't do that. I couldn't say yes and I couldn't say no, and I was in the middle of so much confusion. I spent the next few years trying to find my way. I developed programs for women where I brought in speakers because I was afraid to speak. I found ways to help women have a voice. I created something called Claiming Our Voices, and that turned into Walking Our Talk, which was a program that I helped direct for nearly 20 years, became a nonprofit eventually, where each woman came with a purpose, something she wanted to say yes to. And in that circle of an 8-week program, she had between 8 and 12 other women who were there to support her. So it was a yin yang, the yang purposefulness and the yin deep caring, deep support. And it was very successful. But in all of these experiences, I found a way to hide, in a way to help others rise and help others have their voice. But then I was watching it, just bit by bit by bit, my voice came, and I could feel more and more who I was and what I needed to do. So I remember in that work, I was trying to figure out where my sexuality was. We started to do a tantra practice for 8 years. I became a certified sex educator and a practitioner. I worked deeply with people's bodies, but mostly their souls. How is it that we find presence? How is it that we come fully into this place of where we are and who we are and share that dynamic with another? It's much less about positions, what people think of as sex, and much more about intimacy, what it is to be deeply present and deeply willing to share. That work, and coupled with work, I began working with Miranda McPherson, who's a non-dual spiritual teacher. I'd always had a spiritual bent, and I had been through several iterations of that exploration. And when I found Miranda, the way she held her helping the ego relax work, it was a feminine approach. What I watched was that I could relax that relentless drive, that relentless saying there's something wrong with me and I have to fix myself, into just letting that part of me that was questioning, that was unsure, relax just a little bit. Thank you. Because on the one hand, in spiritual perspectives, we're perfect. And on the other hand, there's a lot we could work on. We can get too focused on working on, or we can get too focused on just floating through life. But it's some Zen master, Shunri Suzuki, that said, you are perfect as you are, and you could use a little work, a little improvement. So we try to meld that, because I think once we take the harsh driver that tells us that there's something wrong, once we remove that, we can actually just see what's true and what needs to come to the fore, what needs to be seen and then explored and then released, to allow the freedom that is possible in menopause that was never possible when we were younger. So there's a Hafiz quote, and this is it. One time, a young student came to Hafiz and asked, how do you know someone who knows God? And Hafiz responded back, someone who knows God, is someone who is able to drop the harsh knife they use on the tender flesh of themselves and others. So, how do we drop the harsh knife we use on ourselves? That tends to be most women's greatest challenge. Once we drop that harsh knife, we're less harsh on everybody else. But when we drop the harsh knife, we become ourselves. We become the grace-filled instrument that's here to help bring the world into a better place. We become a kind of a being in our relationships, in our presence, with our children, in our work life, where it's as if the stops are gone. There's more possibility, there's more opportunity, there's more fullness that's available to live the life that we're meant to live. But we have to look at it. That's why I believe we have menopause. So it's not the end. It's not the bottom. It's not where everything starts to fall apart unless you're resistant, unless you don't want to look at what's going on inside you. It's why many women stay with very comfortable lives. They're afraid to look. I was afraid to look. But once you look, you see what's true. And to find that truth, I'd like to do a practice with you now. So I'd like you to think about one belief that the culture or your parents or your school friends, one belief you have about yourself that's negative, what you're convinced that's wrong or not good enough about yourself. I'm sure it's easy to find. One thing you try to defend yourself against when somebody brings it forward, what you don't want to see in yourself, what you see in other people, but not yourself. If we're not condemning of this behavior, if we're not condemning, then it will find its way to relaxing. So if you can hold on to that one thing, I'll give you an example. For me, just because of a challenging growing up, I found that if I were just pretty much perfect all the time, I would be safe. And so I became sort of a perfectionist. And I didn't realize it, but that sort of pushed people away. It was just this sense of I'm not good enough. And I always have to be better to be enough. There wasn't ever enough. I just always had to do more. So that's my version. And when I think of that in my body, I notice what happens in my heart. I kind of constrict down and I get a little tight in my jaw and my head. I get some folds here above my brow, but especially I feel a constriction in my chest. So I'm going to invite you right now to just bring that to mind, bring that moment to mind, that experience, the thing that brings like, it's what the story you have about yourself, not necessarily what somebody else is saying about you. So as you hold that, notice where in your body you feel that. Notice if it's in your belly, in your head, in your neck, in your shoulders. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to figure it out. The only thing I'll ask you to do is just to notice where it came from. Notice who gave it to you, because it's not innate in your perfect, pristine being that you were at birth. This was passed on to you in one way or another. So just notice that, but then come back to your body. And now breathe. Just let breath come through your body. Your only job right now is not to think about all of this, but to notice the sensation in your body and to breathe. Almost as if you're sending the breath in a soft but focused way to that part of your body that's tight. It's not trying to change that at all. It's really actually just embracing what your body's trying to tell you. Any constriction is an opportunity. So just listen and breathe. Watch the sensation, see if it moves. Sometimes it moves. Sometimes it goes to another part of your body. Sometimes it just shifts a little bit. But your job is to just keep bringing breath. This is the breath of life. In our lives, we found ways to hold our breath when we're scared, when we're worried, when we're frustrated. There's a constriction that happens. But the breath brings ease, brings spaciousness, brings flow. And the body needs that to shift from whatever the constricting message was to something else. So just keep breathing. It can take a few minutes. I'm going to be a little quiet for a few minutes. When you notice that you're beginning to think about the sensation, come back to just noticing the sensation and breathing. And if it doesn't change, just notice its quality, notice its temperature, notice its what its limits are, the extent of it. Notice if it's front or back, side to side, up to down. Just be with it and breathe. And you may begin to notice there's a little shifting. There may not be, but there may be. Just tune into that. And then I'm going to ask you to tune in to a wisdom likely deeper than that message. It might be your heart's wisdom, might be just your inner knowing that's truth and not a lie someone convinced you of. See if that can drop in. Just notice I put my hand on my heart because it's easier for me to feel what's true when my hand is on my heart. It's what we commit to. And what comes to me when I do that is you're just fine. You're okay the way you are. You don't have to be a shining paragon of virtue. You don't have to be an eagle flying in the sky. You don't have to be the most successful, most whatever, most. It's just okay for you to be who you are. Notice what your message is, what your heart's message is. When you feel in your heart, you may notice that there's a spaciousness, an opening. But tune in. Let that settle. If you have a pen, you might want to write that down. Because we're reframing for truth and kindness. It's simple. Not all truth is easy, but there is a kindness that can come with the revealing of any truth that makes it easier. And the body, our somatic work, is the guide. It will guide us every time. Whenever there's any kind of pain or constriction, the body will it's always wanting you to know something. You know, when your stomach is rumbling, you're hungry. When you feel that sensation in your urethra, it's time to go to the bathroom. Your body is just telling you what's true. And the same is true for all of these constrictions we have in our body and all of the constrictions we have in our mind. So, taking a breath, I'd like to shift now to talk a little bit about the work I'm doing and how I'd love this to be something that you can bring into your life. I've been seeing private clients for more than a decade after all the training I've done with Miranda McPherson in seminary for 2 years in an interspiritual interfaith seminary with my Tantra studies. Of course, that was after degrees in my 20s and 30s, and a family. So I'm watching who I've become, who I am. It's like a fruit tree. When I was young, I had a beautiful, beautiful blossoms. Of course, I didn't think they were beautiful, but if I look back, I realize those beautiful blossoms, like my Asian pear trees in the backyard, and they have these beautiful white blossoms in April. One year, I trimmed the tree too late, and I trimmed off all the blossoms, and I had no fruit. Hopefully, by trying to hold on to blossoms, that's what we do. So when the blossoms, the petals drop to the ground and, looks like just a tree with green leaves coming. It takes a long time before those blossoms turn into a little tiny shape, green shape, that will eventually, if the squirrels and the bear, everything else doesn't get them, will turn into a beautiful fruit. One year I had, must have been 100 on that tree. It was just gorgeous. So that is what I believe is possible for us in menopause, and why I've worked with people one-on-one, why it's been so important, because each person has some place where they just need to free up some belief in ourselves, some belief inspired by other people's opinions of us, that holds us back, that keeps us from flourishing and flowering like we are meant to. So I've done this private work and I love it. I love to sit down in front of somebody who either I don't know or I know just a little bit, or I know from a long time working, and just watch what comes through, watch the magic that happens just in the presence of two people. That's been very powerful, but it is not very available to many people. It's expensive, my time one-on-one. So I sometimes offer online courses, and I sometimes offer here in-person courses. I've taken women on retreat 8 years to Mexico, to a beautiful place right on the ocean. But right now, I am beginning to offer something called a membership. It's a monthly package. Basically, monthly, we meet one on a group on Zoom. It's amazing that we have this possibility to gather people who are like-minded, who really want to become basically who we were meant to be from the beginning, who want to free up so much of what's in the way so that we can be basically the radiant beings that we were meant to be. That is our challenge. That is our opportunity. That's why I'm here and why I'm beginning to offer this membership. It's called Lit from Within, because that is the truth. The light is within. When we're young, it looks beautiful on the outside. But as we age, as we come into menopause, as we lose the estrogen that's kept us confined into a certain definition of ourselves, we are freed to be this fully dynamic, purposeful, amazing creature that is radiant, that brings that light, that brings that, there's nothing hiding anymore. There's no place that we can't show. There's no part of us that we don't know. We have all sorts of parts and not all of them are that pretty, but we know them. We're not hiding anymore. And we're watching. The more we come from that place of helping to relax the ego, as Miranda speaks about, helping us to just come into a more spacious place, a kinder place, a more truthful place, there is so much more love. That's what I love, perhaps the most. I love the love. So what I want to offer in this membership is a chance one time a month to have a call with me and a number of other women who are in the membership. And then throughout the month, I upload videos and practices and meditations and sometimes expert teachings, my own teachings. They're just in what I call the hub, the lit hub, where it's a private hub. It's not on Facebook, where you can just go and look. I'm going to show that to you right now if I can. I think I can. Let me see right there. So here we go. I created this little logo because I wanted to just see that we are this radiant being. It's really the light within is what we're hoping to release. I then have where you can find the recordings of all the past live calls, the calendar of what's coming, a place where you can, I'm going to just scooch us into this space where I posted a few days ago now, a space where we can write. If you start a new discussion, you're here, you can post it for everybody in the group to see, because this is a circle. Just like when I was doing Walking Our Talk, we developed a circle of connection because community is where we thrive now. We've had community all of the evolution of humanity until the last 30 years when we're on screens, so much more. And with that, we lose a connection. That's where depression comes from, suicide comes from, so much comes from that lack of connection and support. So we have this. This is a time where you can actually post something and somebody in the circle will respond back to you. I'm gonna scooch back here for a minute. And whoops, nope. Just looking around a little bit. That's right. And then the member directory. I'm gonna scooch away from that so you don't see names, but everybody who's there is there and you can connect with them in that way. Here's where you join the live call. Puts you right into Zoom. I'm gonna cancel that for now and come back here and back to home. At the home page, we have those buttons. So it's easy. You can just click on this live call and just opens up Zoom once a month when we have our call. Here's a little bit of a recording of me. Then I always upload the live calls. So you can see them. They're in this little thumbnail. And then if you touch it, you can click on the play button. And then we have past live calls. Where if you enter in at a certain time, you have access to all the live calls going forward, but not the past live calls. But I've collected a number of the practices and teachings and meditations and centering practices that I've created here and over the last 6 months, and many, many others that are in this hub. So you can come and you can move and look at each piece carefully to just see where you want to move, what you want to do, and how you want to grow. When I was first starting this program, the Lit From Within, I had a step-by-step progression, but then I realized, I'm going to come back to us, just a second. Then I realized actually that this wasn't as helpful, that what we actually needed was a way you could move from place to place to place and see what you needed to see if you wanted to work with something physical or emotional or mental or spiritual or psychological, you could go right to that area and then there would be practices in each of those places. So that is what's possible, so that you'll be able to see that material and see how you can move forward. What I also wanted to say was I like this program because it's available. It's available for you. It's available. It's not that expensive. It's just, it's probably 4 or 5 coffees in a month. So if you go to Starbucks, so that kind of a possibility makes it much more possible for people that can't afford to work with me privately. It's amazing how screens can bring us together into a community, and the way we can have a collection of so much of my teachings, having been evolving over more than a decade. And before that, all the learnings that I was making before I could begin to articulate how to share them. All of that is what I'd like to share with you and what I hope you'll be curious enough to explore. So you may realize that today is the last day for this relaunch of Lit from Within. I relaunch every 6 months. It's my pattern so far. I did it in July, and I'm doing it again in January. So I'm not exactly sure when I'll relaunch, but today is the last day. This is Saturday, the 10th of January. If you feel inclined, if you feel curious, I really invite you to join us now, to come and to be a part of this program. It's kind of miraculous. I'll put a testimonial in the back end so you can see just what people are saying. It really is changing their lives, working together. It's just the possibility for where we can go, where we can be, who we can be at this time in our lives. Instead of questioning and feeling like we're diminished and feeling like our lives are falling apart, all these overlays of an old story, we're finding this radiant part of ourselves, this part that really has the capacity to expand, to meet the needs of the world, but to meet the needs from joy, from this inner joy that isn't burdened with so many misconceptions about ourselves, so many regrets, so many, we are here in this moment. It's almost a meditation practice to be present and to be present with our hearts, with our loving beings, having been extricated from the prison of the stories our mind has told us for so long, and the culture has told us, and other people have told us. We come back to ourselves. And in this place, in finding ourselves and finding the truth of ourselves, that is where we thrive. It is where we shine. And it's why I call this program Lit from Within. So I hope you'll consider coming and being a part of this with us. I want to talk to you. If you'd like to chat, please let me know. You can reach me at mary@diviningbeauty.com. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day.